It was supposed to be just another Christmas shift. 12 hours of glitter, germs, and caffeine holding me together. I'd spent the day in the pediatric wing, juggling IVs and tiny hands clutching teddy bears, telling exhausted parents their kids were going to be okay. By the time I clocked out, I was running on nothing but routine and willpower. The parking lot was frozen solid, my breath a ghost in the air, and all I could think about was getting home to my daughter, Alice. In my head, I could already see her, sitting at my parents' dining table, dessert half finished, cheeks sticky with frosting, trying to stay awake through the chaos of wrapping paper and too many cousins. It wasn't perfect, but it was family. I told myself I could handle the noise, the snide comments, the pretending. Just one night, then peace. The drive home was quiet. Snow had started again, soft at first, then heavy, muffling everything in white. When I turned onto my parents' street, the house glowed warm through the storm, gold light spilling from the windows like something out of a holiday card. But even from the car, something felt wrong. Too perfect. Too still. Inside it was worse. The table was cleared. Plates stacked, glasses half full. My mother moved through the kitchen like a closing waitress. Every motion clipped and practiced. Vanessa, my sister, leaned on the counter, scrolling her phone, nails tapping against the screen. "Where's Alice?" I asked. That look passed between them. Half a second, but full of meaning. "Oh," Vanessa said lightly. "She went home." Home? My mother didn't even glance up from the plates. We all decided she should leave. She needed a lesson. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Then the words sank in, cold and sharp. "You sent her out? Alone? She knows the way," Mom said. "It's not far." "It's dark," I said, my voice breaking. "She's 7. "She'll be fine," she replied, tone clipped, patient, like I was the one overreacting. Something inside me went weightless. The part of me that used to argue just shut down. All that remained was motion. I grabbed my keys and left without another word. The streets blurred. Every streetlight looked the same, every corner too empty. Halfway home, I tried to make sense of it. Maybe they were exaggerating. Maybe Vanessa walked her halfway. Maybe Alice was already inside, curled up asleep on the couch, safe. But when I pulled up, the building was dark. And there she was, standing by the door, snow up to her ankles, her little pink coat frosted white. She didn't run. She just looked at me and whispered, "You were at work." I got out before the car stopped moving. My voice shook. "You're safe now," I said, though I wasn't sure which of us I was convincing. Inside, I wrapped her in a blanket, turned up the heater. Her fingers were stiff, pink at the tips. "Tell me what happened," I said softly. "Aunt Vanessa said I was bad," she murmured. "Everyone was mad. They told me to go home. Why?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Because I wouldn't let Ethan play with my new toy. He breaks things." A pause. "They said I wasn't part of the family if I couldn't share." I cried. Then they told me to go. That was enough. I brushed her hair from her face and saw it, a faint red mark, just beneath her cheekbone. "You did nothing wrong," I told her. She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "For ruining Christmas." Those words nearly broke me. "You didn't ruin anything, sweetheart," I said. "They did." She fell asleep within minutes, clutching the blanket like it might disappear. I sat there for a long time, watching the rise and fall of her chest, the hum of the heater filling the silence. Every word from that house replayed in my head until they lost meaning. Then I picked up my phone. Vanessa answered on the second ring. Her voice was smooth, practiced. "Hey, you found her. What exactly happened tonight?" I asked, a sigh. She was out of control. "I disciplined her." "She'll survive." "Disciplined?" I repeated. "Don't start, Carolyn. You spoil that kid. She was ruining dinner." I let the silence stretch. I could hear the whine in her voice, the smugness. "You're making that face," she said finally. "The judgy one." I hung up. Later, I checked on Alice again. Her skin was warm now, color returning to her cheeks, but the faint bruise still caught the lamplight. Something inside me went very still. They called it discipline. They called it love. Whatever it was, it ended tonight. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. But while they slept off their wine and righteousness, I started making plans. 3 hours later, their lives started to unravel. Because people don't turn cruel overnight. I should have known. I grew up with it. Back then, I thought our house was just strict. That's what Mom called it whenever someone cried at the dinner table. Strict, not mean. Discipline, not anger. She had a gift for rebranding pain. Drop a glass, strict. Forget your homework, strict. Speak too softly or too loud, strict. Dad never said much. He'd hide behind a newspaper, pretending to read about baseball while Mom handled the education. She always said, "A good parent makes their children respect them." But in our house, fear wore the same face as respect. When we were younger, it wasn't just me. Vanessa got it too, until she learned the system. One day she figured out that if she smiled right, said, "Yes, ma'am," at the right moment, the lightning moved. After that, it was mostly me who got struck. By middle school, I could recognize Mom's mood from her footsteps in the hallway. The soft ones meant safety, the sharp ones meant hide. That's how I grew up. And that's how I knew exactly what I was dealing with the night they called it discipline. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. But 3 hours later, their lives started to unravel. Short steps meant lectures. Long ones meant run. Vanessa learned to weaponize it. If something broke, she'd cry first. If something spilled, she'd whisper my name like a prayer. I'd stand there while Mom praised her good girl for being honest and then punished me anyway. Once I remember a hairbrush flying across the room. Vanessa's technically, but my fault because I provoked her. I tried to fight back once. Told Mom it wasn't fair. The next day, I was grounded for talking like an ungrateful child. That's when I stopped arguing. You can't win an argument that already has a verdict. I spent the rest of my childhood looking for exits. Books were the first one. Science was the second. I liked that in science, cause and effect actually made sense. When other kids wanted to be singers or astronauts, I wanted to be a doctor, specifically a pediatrician. I used top hatch-up dolls and lecture invisible patients about washing their hands. The first time I told my family, they laughed so hard my dad choked on his coffee. Mom said, "Sweetheart, you'd faint at the sight of blood." Vanessa said, "You're not exactly med school material, Carolyn." I was 12, so I did what spiteful children do. I studied like revenge was an academic subject. Every A brought home was an argument they couldn't yell over. They never said, "I'm proud of you." But Mom did start saying things like, "Well, studying keeps her out of trouble." I took that as progress. When I got into medical school, Dad said, "Let's see if you can make it through." When I graduated, he said, "You missed your sister's baby shower." Nothing I did ever bought peace, just quieter criticism. I married young, too young. Maybe I mistook the absence of shouting for love. It didn't last. He left when Alice was 5, said he wasn't built for constant stress. Single mother, full-time doctor, fun combination. But I managed. I was good at managing, good at holding things together that wanted to break. Mom said, "Maybe if you weren't so opinionated, he'd have stayed." Vanessa said, "Well, at least you'll have more time for your patients." They never change. They just update the insults. Still, I kept calling holidays, birthdays, the usual guilt traps. I told myself family was family, and maybe I wanted Alice to know hers. When my career started paying off, the guilt turned financial. Vanessa's kids, Ethan and Kay, were in every expensive activity imaginable. He played at a private soccer academy. She took ballet from a retired prima ballerina who charged like she was still on stage. Vanessa couldn't afford either. I could, so I paid every month quietly. No thanks expected. Then there was Mom. Her treatment for joint pain involved palm trees, mineral water, and people named Sven. It was called a wellness retreat, which is rich person language for vacation with doctor's notes. I told myself she deserved it. She told everyone else her doctor-daughter insisted. Sometimes I caught myself calculating how many hours I'd work to fund their comfort. Then I'd feel petty and stop. That's the thing about growing up in a family like mine. You start thinking generosity is the rent you pay for existing. By the time Alice turned 7, Vanessa's family practically lived on my direct deposit. But I told myself it was fine. It kept the peace. It kept them nice to Alice. They'd invite her over, send pictures of her baking with Kay, playing with Ethan, smiling like she belonged there. I'd look at those photos between patients and think, maybe it's different now. Spoiler, it wasn't. The truth is, I wanted her to have the family I never did. A grandmother who'd clap for her. An aunt who'd call her sweet instead of spoiled. Cousins who'd treat her like one of them. I didn't realize I was sending her into the same storm, just with prettier decorations. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and resolve. Alice sat at Thedable in her pajamas, tracing circles on the mug I'd given her. The bruise on her cheek had faded overnight, but the look in her eyes hadn't. She was quiet, careful. Kids learn silence fast when the world teaches it loud. "Hey," I said, pouring another cup. "You know what we're going to do today?" She shook her head. "We're going to talk to someone about what happened." Her eyes widened. "Like who?" "The police." She froze. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong. We're doing this because people should answer for what they do." I tried to sound light, casual, like I was talking about dentist appointments and not trauma. "Also," I added, "you get to see what real adults look like when they actually listen." She gave a tiny laugh. That was the first one of the day. The precinct was mostly empty. Holiday hangover. The fluorescent lights hummed. The air smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. A young officer looked up when we came in. "Can I help you?" I introduced myself, explained what happened. I kept my voice even, factual, like I was presenting a case. I didn't want pity. I wanted a record. He nodded, typing fast. "Who was the person who struck her?" "My sister," he blinked. "Your sister?" "Yeah," I said. "It's a family thing." He hesitated, then looked at Alice. "You're very brave to come in, sweetheart." Alice's shoulders stiffened at sweetheart, but she nodded. Progress. He asked her a few gentle questions. Where it happened. Who was there? What was said? She answered each one quietly but clearly. I sat beside her, not filling the silences. When it was over, he said they'd make a report, add it to the system, and possibly follow up. It thanked him, even though we both knew possibly meant maybe never. But that wasn't the point. The point was the look on Alice's face when we walked out. She stood taller. Her breathing was steady. Outside, she said, "You weren't mad at me at all." "Why would I be mad?" "Because I made you go there." I shook my head. "You didn't make me." "I wanted to." "You deserve to know that when someone hurts you, there's a way to say it out loud." She thought about it. "So they're in trouble now." "Eventually," I said. "Trouble has a slow engine, but it always shows up." That night, after she went to bed, I sat down at my laptop and opened my bank app. The numbers blinked up at me. Transfers, payments, donations disguised as family loyalty. My cursor hovered over the first one, Vanessa's automatic payment to the soccer academy. I clicked cancel. Next was Cora's ballet school. Cancel. Then my mother's monthly wellness treatment, also known as cocktails with a side of spa water. Cancel. Each click felt like reclaiming oxygen. For the first time in years, the money in my account actually belonged to me. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was accounting. Emotional and financial. 2 days later, the phone rang. Vanessa almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. "Hey," she said, pretending not to sound frantic. "The payment for Ethan's program didn't go through. Can you check your bank?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "No need, I canceled it." "You what?" "I'm not paying for you anymore." "You can't just do that. They'll drop him from the team, then pay it yourself." "Carolyn, this is ridiculous. You're making a child suffer because you're mad at me." "You're right," I said. "I'm mad at you. But that's not why I stopped paying. I just finally learned not to give my stuff to people who hit my kid." "You're teaching Alice Toby's selfish," she snapped. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm teaching her that no means no." There was silence, then she hung up. Progress Part 2. The next day it was Mom. She didn't waste time with hello. "What is this nonsense about you canceling payments? Do you know how humiliating this is for your sister? I'm sure she'll survive. She's your family." I noticed. "What about me?" she asked, her voice rising. "What about my treatments?" I leaned back in my chair. "That's not a treatment, Mom. It's a vacation. If you want a tan, pay for it yourself." "Carolyn," she hissed. "How dare you talk to me like that after everything I've done for you? You mean raising me?" "Yes," I smiled to myself. "Maybe that's the problem." There was a Soundike static rage breathing through the phone. "Then, ungrateful child, you'll regret this." Click. I didn't. By evening, my phone looked like a crime scene. 27 missed calls, 14 voicemails, all labeled family. I ignored them all. Alice peeked into the room holding a drawing. 2 stick figures, one taller, one smaller, both smiling. "Is it okay if I put this on the fridge?" she asked. "Of course," she hesitated. "Mom, are you in trouble for going to the police?" "No," I said, "I think they are." She smiled, small but real, and taped the drawing up. The apartment felt lighter, like someone had turned off a constant noise I hadn't noticed before. I used to think silence meant rejection. Now it sounded a lot like peace. For years I'd paid for quiet. Turns out silence was free. The quiet came first. No phone calls, no messages, no guilt trips disguised as family emergencies. For the first time in years, I woke up and didn't owe anyone anything. I thought it was over, but I was wrong. The worst was still coming. Alice and I had pancakes for dinner that week just because we could. I let her drown them in syrup and watched her laugh through the sugar. Haze. For the first time in years, I thought, every dollar I earn goes to us. Silence, it turned out, could feel like freedom, until it didn't. The envelope was sitting in my mailbox 3 days later. Large, official, the kind of beige that means bad news. State Medical Board. I carried it upstairs like it was ticking, inside a complaint. Words that didn't belong to me twisted into new shapes. Abuse, instability, unfit to work with children. And at the bottom, signatures. My mother, Vanessa. For a moment, I just stared. Then aloft. One of those thin breath-through-your-teeth laughs that sound like crying with better posture. They hadn't just come for me. They'd come for the one thing I'd built that they couldn't touch. They'd spent my childhood saying I'd never be a doctor. Now they were trying to make it true. I wish I could tell you I handled it calmly. Instead, I sat on the couch with the letter in my lap and counted my heartbeats until they stopped sounding like gunshots. Alice wandered in holding her sketchbook. "Mom, why do you look weird?" "Because your grandmother and your aunt just accused me of being a danger to children." Her eyes widened. "But you're a children's doctor." "Exactly." She frowned, thinking hard. The way she does when she's deciding if something is fair. Are they going to win? I smiled at her. No, but they're going to try. I called my lawyer, Michael Adler, that night. He'd handled cases like this before and sounded too calm for my liking. "These things happen," he said. "The board will review it. We'll respond with evidence." "Evidence? Anything that shows motive or falsity?" "You have that police report from Christmas, right?" "Oh, I have a collection," I said. "Police report, bank statements, text messages, and enough history to fill a documentary." He chuckled. "Then we're fine. It's a process. Slow, but fine. Slow, the word I hated most. For the next few days, I lived in paperwork. I copied the police report from Christmas, attached proof of every transfer I'd ever made to them, highlighted the day I stopped paying. I pulled screenshots of messages. Vanessa thanking me for tuition money. Mom sending resort photos captioned, "Your treatments are working." Then I wrote my statement. These allegations were made by family members I reported for mistreating my child and from whom I recently withdrew financial support. I read it twice. It was simple, clean, impossible to misinterpret. Exactly what they couldn't stand about me. The investigation dragged on. Emails from the board, phone calls from Michael. Each one began with "unfortunately" and ended with "please be patient." Meanwhile, my family started spreading rumors. Vanessa posted on Facebook about false accusations destroying good families. Mom left cryptic comments about ungrateful daughters who forget where they came from. Relatives I hadn't spoken to since high school suddenly wanted to hear my side. Even at work, whispers floated down the hall. Someone asked quietly if I was okay. I smiled. Never better. Just starring in a family drama. No one asked for HR called me in once only to clarify that they'd seen the posts, but trusted my record and the board would handle it formally. I walked out shaking anyway. Rage has a way of disguising itself as tremors. That night, I drafted one public post. No drama, no caps. For clarity, a complaint has been filed against me by 2 relatives who were recently the subjects of a police report and who no longer receive financial support from me. The matter is under review by the medical board. I have complete confidence in the outcome. Then I logged off. Within hours, people started commenting. Former colleagues, parents of my patients, even neighbors. Messages like, "We know who you are. They're lying." For the first time, their silence wasn't mine to carry. Weeks passed. One morning, Michael called while I was packing Alice's lunch. "They've issued a finding," he said. I stopped mid-slice and he cleared his throat the way lawyers do before. "Good news. Case dismissed. Lack of evidence. The board won't be pursuing it further." I exhaled for the first time in a month. That's it. We'll send a defamation warning just to make it official. They won't want to risk another complaint now. Good, I said, because I'm running out of relatives to block. He laughed. Congratulations. I hung up and stood there for a second, knife in one hand, apple in the other. Then I started laughing. Real laughter this time, loud enough that Alice peeked around the corner. What's funny? She asked. Justice, I said. It finally showed up. She grinned, proud like she'd summoned it herself. 6 months later, justice finally caught up. It took time. Police crawl when it's just family business, but they got there. Vanessa was convicted of misdemeanor assault and child endangerment, sentenced 180 hours of community service, a $2,500 fine, and mandatory anger management classes. My mother was charged with reckless endangerment and neglect. She got 120 hours of community service and a $1,000 fine. The judge told them, "You're lucky the child's still alive." When the local paper covered it, they used initials instead of names. Everyone still knew. It stayed no contact, but news travels without permission. Someone texted me a photo of Vanessa at the community center sorting donated clothes in a fluorescent vest that said, "Volunteer." She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Her social life evaporated faster than her temper ever did. The moms who used to brunch with her ghosted the group chat. Even her kids heard the whispers in the pickup line. My mother's downfall was quieter but sharper. Her wellness retreat stopped. No more spa weeks or seaside treatments. Her friends, the Owns who used to tag her in every beach photo, suddenly got busy. Without my financial help, she and Dad started talking about selling the house and simplifying. Translation, broke. I won't lie, it was satisfying, not revenge. Just symmetry, Alice's world. Meanwhile, got bigger. She laughs more, sleeps better, and knows that when someone crosses a line, we don't pretend it's okay. We're still no contact completely. And peace, as it turns out, is loud when you've never heard it before. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for